this story?
Cool. Well, I designed the story as an allegorical tale, showing it's inspired by true events. But I think it spoke to the current climate of our country, but actually globally. I think, the idea of the culture of tribe and the idea that your perspective and where you come from and your people is the right way. I mean, we see that now with Trump in America. But yeah, that was the fundamental, the idea that we all back our bullshit, whichever side of an argument you stand. The log line for the film is called, this is one man's bandit is another man's champion. So it's just the idea, essentially, of which side of an argument you're sitting on. Yeah.
And maybe to the cast as well, you see there's limited dialogue, but the characters are so well defined and you draw everybody in, even if there is, not scripted in the way we might expect. I'm not sure who we can fight over all of this, but what was it like to work with that, and talk a bit about what you brought to each character as well.
Place also had a lot to do with it, and sometimes language can limit what the human experience is. So Jahmil really gave us, for me, the opportunity to live in imagination and be in that time and place and explore what that is, that moment before and that moment after, and having to sort of live through each moment very specifically in order to find out what the camera needs to see, what the story really is.
Well, having no limited communication, limited dialogue was kind of a blessing for me because I'm from Hamilton, so learning after college would be like, what? My biggest fear was actually learning how to pronounce everybody's names in the cast, because it's not, a regular day thing for me. But with limited dialogue, I mean, for myself, it was knowing what the fears of the character, what the character wants. It was the big thing, and trying to drive for that and go for that, whether you win or lose, and how you deal with that. And I think the one thing that I liked very much about the fact that there's very limited communication, through talking, is not the prime form of how you interpret what a character says. And I think in this piece, where there's so many stories going on, what I liked so much about it, especially when reading the script, was the audience is going to have this opportunity to, without a character saying what they feel, just read what's going on and you can interpret what's going on. And I really like that with what we were doing and my character as well.
Maybe just Bongi, because you didn't speak. You didn't speak last time either. The 3 months.
I think there's something about action speaks louder than words. When we're busy, with the whole movie, it was more about being silent and doing more, and the impact of doing and less saying. It's so powerful, and when I was reading Jahmil's script, it's about 98 pages, and then there's nothing to say about it. But the power of silence for me was so amazing, and the power of just doing, and that's what is happening in human beings. Sometimes you say less, but you do more, and it impacts someone, and that's what this movie, was so amazing, and yeah, thanks to this man.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zolisa.
That's how you pronounce it.
Yes.
Okay. Phew.
I play the policeman, the black policeman with a huge mustache.
Black wide up.
Black wide up. who I think will probably be the most hated man in South Africa when the film comes out. I was very terrified of the character, but I was quite excited at the same time. I always say that even if there was dialogue, he would probably have nothing to say. But I think it was a lot of fun playing it. I had to ask myself a lot of questions about his choices. And I think the ultimate thing is the one thing that we all embody, and it's the instinct of survival. I think the most important thing for him was survival at that time. He could have joined the revolution, but he felt to himself, and he's well within his rights to think so, that the key to his survival lied in his ability to adapt to the situation and be brought and get closer to the white man, and with the hope that he might find some salvation somehow.
A really good record collection.
A very good record collection. So yeah, I mean, I had a great deal of fun. I've always worked with this man. It wasn't our first project together. And I think I would like to give credit to the people that came in and sponsored with money and all that kind of stuff. It must have been very difficult for anyone who's an investor to invest in something that has no dialogue. And so we're not grateful to everybody who came through, and even to all of you who are here this afternoon. You could have been anywhere in the world.
Thank you.
You chose to share this experience with us, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
I do want to open it up to the audience. We have time for 1 or 2 questions. So just raise your hand nice and high, and I'll repeat the question for the benefit of people who might not hear it.
Hi, can you just briefly go over the rituals that we saw here with the coming of age?
So the question is in regards to the rituals, especially in terms of coming of age.
Well, if you read Kepe's love letter to the farmer, he says in the love letter, "Thank you for the sheep, but it's for my son's initiation that's coming up." Kepe's people are Xhosa, and Mandela's people. If you read Mandela's autobiography, he'll talk about that he went to initiation school, and that's what that whole ceremony is about. What I did with that, essentially, we centered the idea around the sheep and the importance of the sheep. You can't have a ceremony without a live sheep to sacrifice. And so on John's last day of freedom, he needed to get that sheep for his son. Hope that answers your question.
Let me just add to that.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, I just want to add to that. So the idea of ritual, is much deeper, right? So there's this emphasis on the external, but it's actually an internal process, right? It's actually, for me, this is where my awakening began. It was the most, I'm a father to a beautiful boy, I've been married, I've won awards for things, but my initiation was it's the most significant thing in my life. That's where I had peace of mind. That's where I had the understanding that a lot of things that are going on around me, in order for me to participate or to answer some of these things, instead of me looking outwardly, I needed to start looking within to find the answers, right? So you grow up in a space where there are certain things around you, and it's when I was in my initiation that I realized that the answer for everything that I need and that I had, moving forward, is within myself, right? So the idea is generally not to focus on the external. Go within. The answers are there, right? So the physical is just an act, right? That sort of brings you to a place to understand that you must go through death in a way in order to get to the promised land.
Kepe lives.
I'm so sorry, I'm getting the signal we have to wrap up because we have a full house in attendance.
Thank you for coming, folks. We love you! On the rocks!